Here are the top stories for today, January 14, 2020. Residents in Batangas affected by Taal volcano's eruption evacuate to safer areas as ordered by authorities. The number of families affected by Taal volcano hits nearly 7,000. Cities in southern Metro Manila and the provinces pour in aid to victims of Taal volcano. And the Army vows to protect youth in Caraga region from recruitment by the communist movement. Good day, I'm William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. As Taal volcano continues to show unrest, authorities advise residents in affected towns in Batangas to evacuate to safer areas. Some residents, however, refuse to leave despite the volcano's condition. Rom Dulfo has this report.
Almost 3,000 families from Talisay in Batangas, one of the towns near the Taal volcano, have been evacuated to safer grounds on Monday due to continuous volcanic activity. Talisay Police Chief Senior Inspector Aldrin Baisa said government security forces and local government units continue to move affected families in Talisay town and neighboring municipalities to safer grounds and away from the volcano's wrath. Although communication lines are stable, there is no electricity and water. A day after the volcano spewed heavy ashes and series of volcanic earthquakes, the residents have been advised to flee their homes for safety. Some residents refuse to evacuate despite the current condition of the volcano, but security forces urge families to stay out of the danger areas. Others who did evacuate still chose to return to their homes to check on their belongings. Those with businesses hope the volcano's condition improves, otherwise they would ask for more time to move out with their merchandise. PHIVOLCS has raised alert level 4 for Taal volcano, which means a hazardous eruption may occur within hours to days. Meanwhile, President Duterte announced he will be visiting areas affected by the eruption of Taal. He said he opted against using a helicopter to make rounds since he wanted to visit all the affected areas. The president admits that his doctor has warned him about traveling near areas with heavy ashfall as it could harm his lungs. But Malacanang assures the president is healthy enough to inspect the affected areas. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Rom Dulfo.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development has ensured it has enough resources to attend to the needs of those affected by the eruption of Taal volcano. DSWD Secretary Rolando Bautista said their field offices are actively sending help to Taal's victims. Among those that they are anticipating in Batangas is the package of about 5,000 food and non-food items from DSWD Region 5. Relief aid also arrived from Pampanga, while others are expected to come from Cordillera, Ilocos region, and Mimaropa. The DSWD is also preparing psychosocial intervention, particularly for the youth. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana also gave his assurance that the government has enough supplies and it doesn't need to ask for foreign donations for now. The government is focusing on providing face masks, transportation, food, and medical care for evacuees. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana on Monday said the worst-case scenario for Taal volcano, which started acting up Sunday, is an eruption with a scale similar to the eruption of Mount Pinatubo. Mount Pinatubo erupted in June 15, 1991, during which 800 people died and 200,000 lost their homes. Lorenzana said they fear that Taal's eruption would cause the entire island to rise and scatter debris on the nearby areas. The NDRRMC chair said he already talked with Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology Director Undersecretary Renato Solidum, who said that there is no danger of tsunami as Taal Lake is too small. Lorenzana also reiterated President Duterte's directive that families in the affected communities or regions must be evacuated to safer grounds. The scale and use of N95 face masks boomed nearly overnight as volcanic ash from Taal volcano spread in parts of Luzon. Authorities have warned against taking advantage of the demand for face masks at the expense of those who need them. More on this from Teresa Montemayor.
The city government of Manila has started a crackdown on stores selling overpriced air filtration masks. The masks usually cost around 30 to 75 pesos each. They suddenly went expensive after their demand increased following government advisories to wear them as protection from ashfall caused by Taal volcano's unrest. Vice Mayor Hani Lacuna Pangan said merchants found guilty will have their permits revoked apart from having to face charges. She ordered the Manila Bureau of Permits at Manila Licenses Office to conduct inspections. Health Undersecretary Eric Domingo has joined calls for businessmen not to take advantage of the disaster at the Taal volcano. He particularly told them not to overprice the usually inexpensive N95 masks. Domingo also warned the public not to hoard or buy facial masks by bulk, saying those with respiratory problems should be prioritized when obtaining them. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice plans to investigate complaints against traders who would take advantage of Taal's eruption by selling overpriced masks. Violators may be charged with profiteering and violation of the Consumer Act. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Teresa Montemayor.
Still to come, the number of families affected by Taal volcano hits nearly 7,000. Cities in southern Metro Manila and the provinces pour in aid to victims of Taal volcano. More on this when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Pagkatapos ng lindol, alamin kung nagkaroon ka ng pinsala, gayon din ang iyong mga kasamahan. Mag-ingat sa mga basag na salamin at iba pang bagay na makakasugat. Magsuot ng matibay na sapatos para hindi masugatan ang inyong paa. Lumayo sa mga dalampasigan. Posible ang pagkakaroon ng tsunami kapag huminto na sa pagyanig ang lupa. Kung kayo ay nasa paaralan o trabaho, sundin ang emergency plan. Posible ang pagkakaroon ng aftershocks o mga pagyanig, kaya manatiling kalmado at sundin ang mga alituntunin para manatili kayong ligtas. Tignan ang mga linya ng tubig, gas at kuryente kung may sira. Kung meron, isarado agad ang switch o valve. Kung may amoy ng gas, buksan lahat ng mga bintana at pinto. Magmadaling lumabas at i-report sa mga kinauukulan. Nakasaad ang hotlines ng mga ahensya na maaaring tawagan kapag may emergency o krisis. Isang paalala para masiguradong ligtas sa pagdating ng lindol.
Nearly 7,000 families, or about 30,000 persons, have so far been affected by the eruption of Taal volcano on Sunday. In its 6 a.m. update on Tuesday, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council said about 4,000 families are being sheltered temporarily at 118 evacuation centers. The affected families came from 22 towns and 3 cities of Batangas and from Tagaytay City and Alfonso Town in Cavite. The NDRRMC is still to release any figures relating to casualties and damage. The agency added that a total of 286 volcanic earthquakes were recorded in the Taal region as of 2 a.m. Tuesday. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said the number of evacuees are unlikely to exceed 300,000. He foresees no problem with the delivery of relief goods since their locations are accessible. The first batch of overseas Filipino workers repatriated from the Middle East have flown back to the country. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said the OFWs are taking a commercial flight to Manila from Doha, Qatar. The batch, consisting of 12 Filipinos, came from Baghdad, Iraq, were expected to arrive Tuesday afternoon. Lorenzana said the OFWs were waitlisted after all flights to Manila were canceled because of the Taal volcano eruption over the weekend. Meanwhile, requests for repatriation from OFWs in Iraq, Libya, and other Middle East hotspots have been received by embassies and consulates, and their exit clearances are now being processed. The government is committed to help areas affected by the Taal volcano eruption to immediately address the needs of the people and the economy. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III on Monday said officials of various government agencies are monitoring developments on the ground to properly respond to the affected families. Dominguez said food packs are being distributed to people in the various evacuation centers, while affected farmers and fisher folk have been offered by the Department of Agriculture of zero and low interest emergency loans. Dominguez said Region 4A accounts for about 17% of the country's domestic output in 2018, while Metro Manila is about 36% and Central Luzon at 9%. He said the country loses 1 to 2% of its gross domestic product due to natural disasters. He said they are likewise working on a natural catastrophe cover for strategically important infrastructure which would protect against natural catastrophes. Several cities in Metro Manila and other provinces have offered help for the victims of Taal volcano's eruption. Help pouring in includes food, manpower, and logistics for evacuations.
Rescue teams from Taguig have come to Tagaytay to provide food packs, water, and fire trucks for residents affected by the eruption of Taal volcano. The local government of Muntinlupa City also donated face masks to evacuees, while Parañaque City officials offer to send aid as it ensures the safety of those affected by ashfall. Meanwhile, the Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction Management Office of Bulacan is now ready to deploy a team to Talisay, Batangas to help the people affected by the Taal volcano's eruption. Governor Daniel Fernando earlier said the PDRRMO is also providing assistance to the Bulacan residents who may have been affected by the ashfall which reached as far as Pampanga. The Pampanga PDRRMC will also send Monday night medical teams, social workers, rescue and search personnel, as well as equipment and food packs to help the affected residents. Governor Dennis Pineda said this is their opportunity to return the help and support given to them when Pampanga was devastated by disasters, particularly the eruption of Mount Pinatubo in 1991. Bus operators plying the Southern Tagalog have also offered to help in evacuation efforts and delivery of relief goods. About 22 bus companies from the Southern Luzon Bus Operators Association have joined the activities. Meanwhile, Davao City has committed to send about 5,000 food packs to families affected by the Taal volcano's eruption. Task Force Davao has also urged the public to donate goods. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Joyce Goodies.
Up next, the Army vows to protect youth in Caraga region from recruitment by the communist movement. And Bohol works on increasing milk production to combat malnutrition among children. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders. The Army has vowed to help strengthen youth groups in the Caraga region to keep them from the influence of the communist movement. In a gathering of youth leaders last Sunday, Lieutenant Colonel Francisco Molina Jr. of the Army's 23rd Infantry Battalion urged members of the Propelling Our Inherited Nation Through Our Youth, or POINTY Incorporated, to protect more youth from rebel recruitment. Civil Military Operations Officer Roel Maglalang said the strengthening of youth organizations is among the priorities of the battalion. Colonel Alan Hambala, the commander of the 41st Infantry Brigade of the Army, also challenged the youth leaders to engage in peaceful nation building. POINTY Incorporated, meanwhile, conducted their first quarter meeting last Saturday in Prosperidad, Agusan del Sur. The activity was focused on the review and amendment of some provisions of its constitution and bylaws in preparation for its transformation incorporated into an institutionalized non-government organization. In our foreign news, the government of Australia warns that koalas could be listed as an endangered species as a result of bushfires. Australian Minister of Environment Susan Ley and Treasurer John Frydenberg on Monday announced $34.4 million in funding to support species affected by the bushfire crisis. Ley said koala populations have suffered an extraordinary hit from the fires, declaring that the iconic species could be officially listed as endangered. Experts fear that half of the 50,000 koalas that live on Kangaroo Island in South Australia have perished in fires that have devastated the island. In other news, Duty Free Philippines Corporation doubled its year-on-year sales growth to 4% in 2019 compared to 2% the previous year. DFPC's consolidated sales reached more than $226 million in 2019 from $217 million in 2018. DFPC Chief Operating Officer Vicente Pelagio Angala said the Philippines' hosting of the Southeast Asian Games and the opening of duty-free Lux have significantly contributed to the upswing. Angala said the growing number of tourists visiting Boracay Island via Calibo Airport has been beneficial to DFPC sales. Filipino tourists, balikbayans, and overseas Filipino workers remain the top source markets with a share of 85%. Confectionery is still the major growth driver with 31% share of the total sales, followed by liquor, fragrance and cosmetics, and fashion merchandise. DFPC is expected to maintain the momentum in 2020 with the opening of duty-free store at the Hilton Sun Valley Resort inside Clark Freeport Zone by the first quarter of this year. To address malnutrition among children as well as fulfill the needs of locals and tourists, the province of Bohol hopes to boost the production of its locally sourced milk, particularly those from Carabao. Ruth Abigita Carlos has the story.
The provincial government of Bohol is eyeing for additional milk-producing carabaos to increase milk production intended to feed some 25,000 children. Bohol Governor Arthur Yap said, milk consumption of Bohol requires increase in production at Ubay Stock Farm. The effort is in partnership with the Philippine Carabao Center and the National Dairy Authority. Bohol's milk feeding program for 25,000 children alone would need around 800 milk-producing carabaos. At present, the Ubay Stock Farm has 300 milking carabaos. Yap said there is a need to recruit the balance of 500 to meet the required number of heads to achieve a certain number of liters of milk needed for the province milk feeding program alone. He noted that Bohol also caters milk to 1.6 million tourists and there are 1.3 million locals, but the Ubay Stock Farm cannot supply the existing demand. More important than that, on the issue on malnutrition, Bohol has the highest level of malnutrition in Central Visayas. He also said that aside from agriculture, as a way to increase food production, the provincial government will also bolster the 1,000-day program for pregnant women and lactating mothers. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Ruth Abigita Carlos.
Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Residents in Batangas affected by Taal volcano's eruption evacuate to safer areas as ordered by authorities. The number of families affected by Taal volcano hits nearly 7,000. Cities in southern Metro Manila and the provinces pour in aid to victims of Taal volcano. And the Army vows to protect youth in Caraga region from recruitment by the communist movement. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check out more news content, check our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo. Good day.